Right, everybody. So again, my name is Kristen Merritt, and I am so excited that Nicole was kind enough to ask me and my colleague Will Mears to speak to you guys this evening or this morning or afternoon, depending on your location, about what we have kind of broadly termed engagement around inclusivity activities within your work, within your life, and with everything else going on. Now, you're going to see this weird thing at the top of the screen. And it's this thing that says menti.com, use code 9881943. And that's because this presentation is actually interactive. In the UK, the RSE community uses this as a very informal way of making presentations fun and informal. So if you have a tablet or a smartphone, or if you can open up a new window, I would not say open up a new tab because sometimes things can get a little lost. You can open up a new window. You guys are free to participate. And this is all 100% informal. We actually don't keep any of your data. You're not going to be signing up to anything while you do this, by the way. So this is just pure good fun. So while you guys try to figure this all out, what I'm going to do is give you guys a little bit about ourselves. So, and I'm also going to let Will speak because he is obviously my equal in this. So hello, everybody. So I'm Kristen, and I'm a program manager at Alcis Flight. I'll talk about the DEI stuff, but Will's going to introduce himself and talk about what we do at Alcis.
Cool. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name's Will Mears. I work for Alcis. Alcis is, we've called ourselves like an HPC integration company. So we're about 15 years old. We started with hardware many years ago, plugging computers together like a lot of integrators did. And we've kind of gone through the cloud revolution. We've popped out the other side. And now we have a good mixture of people using cloud, people using hardware, and people sort of doing everything and using all sorts of different pieces. So Alcis, we make our money by creating solutions, HPC clusters, HPC working solutions for people, putting people in contact with other environments, other groups that work well together. And a huge amount of our time is actually helping the customer succeed here. So I'll hand back to Christine in a minute, but what do I do for Alcis? So I'm what's called a solution consultant. So I try and get the customer to actually say what it is they want to do. Do they want to do a bit more computing? Do they want to do some fast storage? Do they have a scientific problem they want to solve? That sort of thing. And yeah, there's a bunch of technical, computery stuff in there as well. But I think Christine will agree, a lot of our day job is actually part therapist as well. It's really trying to get customers to open up about what they want to achieve, how they're going to get there, and really find a solution that it's not about computers, it's not about money, it's about people, it's about them getting their work done, it's about people succeeding. So this topic, this ability to actually move forward, to work with people, to form groups, to get on and achieve things, this is very dear to the heart of both myself and Kristen. So with that, let me hand back to Kristen to talk to you a little bit about her history and how she's ended up where we are today, and a little bit about DEI stuff as well.
Yeah, it was a bit by accident. My husband, so for those who know, my husband was a postdoc at Oxford University. That's how I ended up over here. My background's actually in classics, and I'm a humanities person, but I ended up in tech. It was a very weird and natural fit for me. And as I like to tell people, the more difficult and complex the tech, the happier I seem to be in that particular field. I do program management, and that means that I look after projects. I also do marketing, sales, presentations, and as part of my role at Alcis, we do DEI, so diversity, equity, and inclusion, or EDI or EDIA, depending on where you're from. So Will and I started out actually as volunteers for Women in HPC, for those who are familiar with that group. We still actually run their social media channels, and we're volunteering with that group still to this day. So it's about 5 years that we've been doing that. And then last year at SC 21, we both became volunteers for SC Inclusivity. I was officially on the team, and Will kindly came along and pitched in his help, so we were able to get extra training. That has led us to doing more work with the RSE community, especially with EDIA. So that's a little about us. Hopefully, I've got people putting hearts in the corner. We've got everybody who wants to be engaging. So let's do a who's ready. Just so you know, this is like a totally arbitrary thing. Pick your favorite cat. And also know that we do not discriminate against dogs, birds, pigeons, anything else like that. It's just a fun way to just make sure we're getting going and people feel comfortable with this particular platform, which is a lot of fun to use. So I'll give it like a minute or two. I know some of you guys are 100% used to using this, so cool. We'll take that at 12 and be done with that. Ooh, more. I'm really glad. Okay, so the typing cat one. That was my favorite as well. Right, guys. So underway we go. Let's talk about the role of an RSE. So whenever you talk about any type of engagement, any type of diversity inclusion initiative, and you look at an RSE, you realize in an RSE, at least here in the UK, I'm sure it's the same in the US, depending on the size of the institution, an RSE can be lots of different things. And my first question to you guys, get you warmed up, is in 3 words, any 3 words you can think of, please try not to be rude. What do you do as an RSE, or what do you believe an RSE should do? So just give 3 any words that you'd like to right now. And then that's kind of a way that we're just sort of gauge from the group roughly where you guys are. And like I said before, I've worked with universities where you've got very niche, very dedicated RSEs to groups where RSEs have a tendency to wear many different hats. This might be a part-time thing that they're doing in relation to a whole bunch of other roles. I'm so glad to see some stuff coming in. Thank you guys so much.
And there's no wrong answers here, right?
Yeah, I mean, none.
I think a lot of what both of us do, trying to find solutions for people, is accepting early on that we don't have all the answers. And typically the customer doesn't have all the answers. Yes, it's good to put things on the table so you've got something to talk about and sort of critique. But yeah, don't be afraid of saying the wrong thing.
No, there's no wrong one. I see code is in the middle of it, and yes, absolutely 100%. That's a huge bit. I love the collaborate. That's a great one that's coming up there. Consult and software and science. And I love, what was it? There was one that came through, customer interaction, writing and bridge. I like bridge as well. Listens.
I like glue. I think glue is my favorite.
Glue, yes. Right. I think that's everybody who'd like to participate in this one. So what kind of, oh, and one more person, thank you. One of the things that sort of guided me as I got to do some of the graphics work on this, and I think I gave Will a big giggle, is that I firmly believe that an RSE is a unicorn. There is, when we talked about this, we thought, well, okay, we kicked around all these terms and we were trying to figure out, like, really, what does an RSE do? So everyone's technically adept. That is probably the first main feature of anybody who's a research software engineer. But then they have these sort of like 5 key features that make them who they are. And that is, number one, people facing, which is often a very difficult skill, a lot of soft skills that need to be developed there. They're looking ahead. Everything you guys are coding, especially in our field, in HPC sort of grew up organically and people kind of coded as they went along. And this stuff isn't meant for long term. So we've seen a lot of people in the RC field doing HPC work who are future. They're thinking like, this has got to last. And as such, all of you are problem solvers. Almost every time I come around this, somebody's teaching, there's some training involved. And I think we came up with the word egoless. I also think of the word passionate. I have been so lucky to be part of this community and find people who genuinely care about producing really good software, really good research, and not only that, trying to be as inclusive as possible. How many people can we bring in? How many people can we teach? And that is like one of the most interesting and amazing things out there. So, sorry, my brain just shut down briefly. As a person, as an RSE, you guys are magic unicorns, and as magic unicorns, you have to have a really big network of people to work with in order to build that type of communication and that engagement that's incredibly inclusive. So in terms of our next question for the group, we wanted to kind of find out what makes up your network right now as it stands. And we tried to pick, again, some really nice, big, broad areas. Is your network consisting of allies? Mostly inside. These are the type of people that are there for you to kind of help you out. Are they collaborators? Do you work a lot outside? Do you lean outside to get what you need? Mentors. Mentorship is really important. In fact, that's the part I'm going to talk about before I actually hand over to Will to pick up the other half. And communication tools. Now, this was one we kicked around too. We kept saying automation. It's like, how do you streamline how you talk to one another, how you engage with your network, with your projects, with your team, in a way that kind of saves time and effort and that sort of thing. So these are the kind of things. Okay, so we got allies and collaborators. I thought that was about 50-50 or almost 50-50 on that. And then the communication tools, this one we'll get into, because I find as software developers, which most of you guys come out of that are as developers and coders, that having that as part in your back pocket is really useful. So cool, got about 16 people responded. Everybody's about split. That's fabulous, thank you. So I'm going to talk about mentors and allies together. And then after this, I'll hand it off to Will. RSEs, perhaps this is why I have such an affinity with you guys. We have a tendency to be very resilient. I've always found that a lot of the RSE community is incredibly capable on their own. And so really part of this talk that we're giving today is to really talk to you guys about the fact that there are people out there, and we have this wonderful community. We have the Purdue RSE UK that's out there. So really, we want you to know that you never really need to go it alone. What is a mentor? Who is an ally? They help you problem solve. These are the people that are there for you to get in at the thick of things. So a ally is more of somebody who might be a bit more into the project itself, a bit more into the engagement itself, whereas a mentor might be more removed from the situation, might be there to help you with your career, or they might actually be there to mentor you through a project. We've seen that happen in the past. And so those roles can sometimes flip. Sometimes you need an ally, sometimes you need a mentor. I do want to give a very passing mention to two terms that came up when we did our research, which are sponsors and advocates. Those are out there as well. But for this talk, we really wanted to talk to you more about the people who are kind of in it with you, whereas somebody who might sponsor or advocate for you might be really far removed, there to kind of boost you up more career-wise or boost up the project. So someone high up signing off, for example. Looking into allies, you can kind of see what they are. They're there to help you through the thick of things and help you to build that trust and help you to grow within what you're doing right there in that moment. Mentorship, however, I find can be kind of a fuzzy area. So the question I wanted to ask the group here is, what kind of mentorship have you had in the past or experienced? There's three kinds we thought of, and then of course there's the sad little no mentorship button. Those who know about women in HPC and the work we do in women in HPC is there has been formal mentorship programs where you sign up for it, you get matched, and you do everything, you kind of like in a sort of programmatic way. Informal membership, I have to speak from tell a personal story. When I lived in Houston, Texas, which is where I lived before I moved to the United Kingdom, and that was ages ago, I actually worked in politics, and I was working on grassroots campaigns and things like that. And at the time, had I realized this, I was surrounded by very strong female leaders who were dead set and determined for me to do well. And I didn't realize they were really mentors. It was sort of like this, I could sit and I could talk to them, and they would talk me through my career, and they could tell me, oh yeah, why don't you try this? And I felt, very lucky to be surrounded by these incredible women. And I still consider myself quite lucky. I've been blessed with leadership from women my whole life. Reverse mentorship is something I've seen a lot pop up only recently. And in our field in HPC, in fact, I've been writing about this lately, been looking at long-term HPC, is that for 30 years, everything kind of followed a path, and then all of a sudden everything got faster as hardware became more affordable, and then cloud got introduced, and it just went up and up and up and up and up. And to keep up in tech, I find is really, really difficult to do. And someone suggested at the last SC we were at that we should look at reverse mentors and have the people who are coming up in the field talking more to the people who've been there, done that, so that we can actually break bad habits, look at things in completely different lights and go forward. So if you haven't, and I know a lot of people haven't either, I've only really been exposed to this recently too. I think reverse mentorship is something everyone should kind of consider in their back pocket, that maybe we should go out there and talk to somebody who is, not as, jaded by a field and stuff like that. So there you go. Thanks so much for letting me talk for a little bit. So I'm going to actually hand this over now. Will's going to do the other half, and he's going to say, next slide, please, to me, because I'm driving the whole thing, and talk to you more about collaboration.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, Kristen. So collaborators are really important. All projects need collaborators. We need to do something. We need to bring people in to make it bigger than ourselves. Everybody will have spotted them. You'll have people coming in offering to help. Maybe they've been placed there to help. Maybe you've actually gone out and sought them and gone and found them to help. And what's really important is to recognize them and to help put them into a position where we can get that project completed, where we can actually make progress. So if you want to move on, Kristen, we're going to try and identify which collaborators you have worked with in the past. And we're going to do a quick straw poll to find out where your collaborators have been. Maybe they are researchers at your institution that you're working with. Maybe external institutions there as well. There are other people. Maybe you've worked mostly with RSE teams, or perhaps it's commercial partners. Maybe it's your integrator. Maybe it's a vendor, somebody like that. So, everybody put some things together. Looks like researchers, RSEs, other institutions are winning so far. Oh, Kristen, commercial partners, sad face. We're not doing as well as everybody else. But I think
yeah, the commercial partner one, the reason we put that in there too is I think there's been a big shift in how commercial engagement, especially because of the pandemic, has hit. People are starting to talk a lot more honestly. And to be honest with you, from a commercial partner standpoint, I actually prefer candid talk conversations. So yeah, but that's fine. It doesn't surprise me though. Doesn't surprise me at all.
Absolutely. I think certainly for commercial partners, for companies, there's an expectation that somebody's going to get their credit card out and spend some money. And yeah, I get that. I really do. I appreciate that. But yeah, cool. Okay, brilliant. Everybody's voted some bits and pieces. Looks like we're mostly talking with other researchers, other institutions, and as well as our own, and some other sets of RSEs with informal and other sort of following up there. And commercial partners, we're flat last here. But yeah, that's cool. Do you want to move on, Kristen? So everybody in the group can be useful. Yeah, if they are either self-selecting to be part of your project, or you go and get them and help them to join your project and do useful things. That is all really, really useful. Now, it is important to set expectations. I think Kristen and I spend a lot of time when we're working with customers, with other commercial groups. A lot of what we do is placing responsibility on people sensitively and sort of in a way that we think is actually going to move the project forward. There's no point giving responsibility to somebody who doesn't want responsibility. He's not going to do that. That's just going to lead to friction further down the line. It is a really useful skill if you can see things from the other person's point of view, from how much time they've got to commit, what resources they've got to commit as well. And that's the way we're going to build that community out and sort of help to achieve your shared goals. Now, these people might already be allies. They may already be mentors. Maybe it's somebody you're working with. Maybe reverse mentorship, it's somebody you're working with here too as well. So really important to work out who these people are, identify these people and enable them. Yeah, that's the key thing here for being successful. Okay, so once we've identified our collaborators, we need to decide how we're going to work with them, how that's going to form our little project team. Now, some people will be with you throughout the project, other people will join you at different times. So if we want to move on, Kristen. Do you feel pressure in a project to involve everybody in your project. So this is a very quick straw poll. I'm hoping we get some different answers here as well, but certainly from my point of view, when we're trying to build a project team right at the beginning, it can be very difficult to work out who's going to be involved here. And I know, Kristen, you've worked with a lot of cloud projects as well, so I think you've probably experienced that as well.
Yeah, I think the start of any project, or the start of any, like even your career, and like who are you going to keep involved, and who do I keep in contact with? I think there's a lot of pressure to put everyone in and get everyone in there and get everyone all excited. And while that can be good, I think that's what really leads to the rest of the conversation about inclusive engagement. It's like, it's great to have everybody involved, but there is obviously more that can be done there. So
sure, yeah, absolutely. And I think a really important skill that it's taken me some time to develop, and maybe other people are the same, is how to divide projects up between the people, between the collaborators. Sometimes the people who self-select for the project aren't necessarily the ones who can actually take the lead. Sometimes you need to spend some time moving people and maybe even flexibly changing what you're trying to achieve in your project to suit the people you have. But building a strong working team is absolutely critical to getting things done, to succeeding as a whole. Cool. All right. Fantastic. So it looks like most people have either definitely or sometimes had pressure to include everybody in the project. So that's good. That's kind of, I think, what I certainly feel as well. So let's look at now how we can set up some boundaries, set up some ways to help people actually create useful project teams and work together. Now, a boundary is not a blocker. Yeah, we're not trying to halt collaboration. We're not trying to prevent people from helping here. What we do need to do, though, is set expectations about what's going to happen through the project. We need to make sure everybody's clear about what they're achieving. Everybody's got an opportunity to commit and to add things into our project, but we're not overburdening people. We're not pushing people to places where they're going to be uncomfortable. Now, some people will self-select. They will be full of enthusiasm. They'll be keen. They'll be very happy to get involved. But as we're building our project teams, certainly Kristen and I, we spend a lot of time trying to encourage feedback from maybe the shy members or the more edge members of a project team, and really try and give them a bit of a push to commit and be helpful there. Now, the best project managers learn pretty quickly that everybody needs to feel like they can contribute if they're going to be part of a project. We're really not good at getting the best out of people if they feel that they're not succeeding. Now, that means you can't give one person in the project all the fun stuff to do. Equally, you can't be a martyr and take on all the really difficult things and leave all the fun things to other people. One of the most difficult tasks in building an effective project team is making sure that everybody can do some stuff that they enjoy. Everybody's got some maybe harder work to do, but critically how this is going to fit together in a jigsaw piece of actually delivering something successful. Now, once the team's assembled, keeping everybody busy and happy and healthy is absolutely the hardest task. Don't underestimate how much effort that's going to take as part of your project. I think I described at the top of the call, Kristen and I do kind of describe ourselves as therapists as sometimes, because just helping a customer be successful, sometimes they need a friendly ear. Yeah, they need somebody they can talk to. And quite often we will say to customers, oh, well, I don't think we're the best fit for you here, but let's go and find some other commercial partners that work hard, and that will help you be successful. You'll soon learn who's good at what things, right? So talking to people, having project calls, sitting down with them, working out what they want to do, those are all good ways of creating these boundaries, working out how everybody's fit together. We all have partners, kids, pets, hobbies, community commitments, all sorts of different things that means we're pulled in different directions. And it can be really difficult to predict what those are going to be. We absolutely need to share those, make sure that everybody's clear what we're going to do. I think as well, those things change over time, particularly projects that are a bit longer. Maybe they're many weeks, many months, maybe even multiple years here. people's priorities do change. Again, Kristen and I, we laugh sometimes. Some HPC projects start off as a weekly thing or a monthly thing, but there are customers who will go away. They'll come back after 12 months or 24 months or 3 years or 5 years, and they want to start again. They want to sort of come back to a project that they've maybe put down for a little bit. And in times like that, you really do have to re-establish what the boundaries are, what the goals are in the project to make sure that everybody's still on the same track. So talking about timing, talking about where we're going to be, if you want to move on, Kristen. Have we ever been part of a project that didn't finish on time? Yeah, okay, so IT projects are kind of famous for overrunning, for maybe going a little bit awry. Maybe things happen really quickly, maybe things don't happen so quickly. Particularly in IT, I think scope creep is a really big problem. We start off trying to solve a problem, and then soon we've piled on a load more problems. Maybe we're over budget at the end. And certainly when we're talking about commercial collaborators, this is probably the thing that your commercial partners are going to be the most sensitive to, because more than anything for commercial people, time is money. Yeah, so as projects overrun, that's where we start to get the friction. And I'm glad the dogs are kind of equal now. We're kind of a mixture between the left dog and the right dog. So that's kind of worked well. Good, excellent. And everybody then, I think, pretty much has an IT project that's overrun. That's fine. We have two. Yeah. If we move on, Kristen. Overrunning's bad. Yeah, so I think we know overrunning's bad. Now, obviously for the project, it's got implications. It's a bit slower, it's going to cost more money, whatever. But I think emotionally, I think personally, overrunning is bad as well. For a team, it feels like that you've not achieved. It feels like that you haven't completed what you wanted to achieve. It's demotivating, it's exhausting. It can make you feel like you've failed. So proper planning, sitting down, setting expectations, setting goals, that can really help making sure that we don't overrun, that we don't mess up. Sometimes it's the case that we just slip up right at the beginning and we forget to write down what it is that we're trying to achieve. Particularly with enthusiastic people, we've found that it's more fun to stretch for the next goal than it is possibly to say, right, we've achieved our particular goal initially, and we want to build on that and create something new. Particularly important for software products, actually in computing. It's a funny industry, IT, because when you walk away from the computer, when you turn the computer off, there's nothing there. Yeah, there's nothing tangible. There's nothing we've made. We've not sort of made something out of wood. We've not built a bird cage. We've not done any of these things. So at the end of a heavy day of getting your software to work, it can be a bit demotivating when you walk away and you think, oh, what have I actually achieved? So really is important to set some goals, to recognize what success is when we hit it, and to build on those and sort of get to where we need to be. Now, reviewing, reporting, documentation, these are all really useful tools in helping us recognize when we've done some things. So let's look at some of the ways that we can automate some of these tasks, and we can create some ways of sharing this information across our network. So if you want to move on, thank you, Kristen. What are some of the different ways that you share knowledge with your other RSEs? So these are tasks, these are opportunities, these are events, let's say, that you can build into your RSE projects that allow you to do particular different things. So maybe we've got documentation repositories there, we've got GitHub, we've got webinars, we've got events like this. Maybe it's talking, maybe it's chatting, maybe it's a project call. So what are some of the things that you use to help share your knowledge with other people? And that green section, that repos, that kind, everybody's a GitHub monkey, right? Everybody wants to use GitHub. And so, yeah, cool. That's getting a lot of votes. Depends on the project, yeah. So some people find GitHub really friendly, really useful to use. If you're doing documentation, doing training things, GitHub can be a bit clunky. Plus, it's the tool of the day, right? So we're all modern software people, so there'll be a new other tool next. Looks like a lot of people have voted. Cool. Okay, so webinars, which is good. We're on a webinar. That's what we like. that seems to be featuring heavily, which is good. We're a self-selected group who do that. Networking, yeah, absolutely, really important. That's useful for building teams, for finding out how people are feeling, how people are getting there. Volunteering, mentoring, both really important things as well. I think a lot of people haven't had in IT that sort of community feel before, so that's good that that's there as well. Repos, documentation code, GitHub, that's good, and some other stuff, general support, education initiative, good, fantastic. So we've got a good mixed group there. If you want to move on, Kristen. Paying it forward is a really important thing, particularly for the community, but also don't underestimate the value of doing this for yourself as well. Obviously, Kristen and I do this. We work for a commercial company. I would say being part of these events, finding out what it is users, customers, end users are trying to achieve, this is a really big thing for us. This is really useful. And a vendor that is doing this, hopefully you can see how it's valuable for them as well. So being able to pay it forward, to be able to contribute to your network is a key objective of RSE. A lot of us here are working for educational institutions. A lot of us are working for national laboratories as well. So education, this is our bread and butter, right? This is what we all do. This is what we're trying to achieve here. So learning how to do that, how to use computers, how to feedback to other people is key. If we can pass those on, then we are building the next generation of people who will be doing this when we're retired, when we're doing something different as well. So we looked at some of the tools that, some of the events and things that we can use to share information. Now let's look at some of the tools we can use to automate those things. So Kristen touched on this a little earlier, the communication tool set that we use for sharing information, for making sure that we can work effectively together. So yeah, if you move on, Kristen, here is our set of different tools that we typically use. So does anybody use any of these? I'm going to say I use probably 2 or 3 of those. Alcis is we're a Google company, so we've got a lot of Google Alphabet stuff. We've got Slack as well. We use Trello quite a bit for organizing things. Obviously, our dev teams all use GitHub. What else do we do? Project management. We do use project management tools. I think one of the issues we've had in recent years with project management tools is for a commercial company, you can start to pigeonhole yourself a little bit with particular tools. So we try and stay away from the MS Project view of the world, because that's what everybody uses. So it isn't on there. Yeah, we have a comment. Yeah, email isn't on the list. I'm going to call email other. But yeah, email's an interesting one. Email's a little bit more formal maybe than the chat tool, a little bit slower. We tend to, I think at Alcis, certainly use email a lot for communicating with external parties, but internally, I don't think, Kristen, I can't remember the last time you and I sent an email to each other. I think it's been a while.
No, we use Slack mostly.
Yeah.
I and the thing is that, and you'll get into this, email can be a dangerous thing. So yeah. Yeah, we've all had a few whoopsies with emails. Delete. Cool, excellent. So sounds like, looking at this tool, the majority of us are using a chat tool. We're using Slack, Discord, and I guess we can kind of thank our distributed existence over the last 2 years a little bit for that. Trello, GitHub, yeah, absolutely. A little bit more formal there. It's something that's created that we go back and review. Documentation repository, yeah, some of us might be doing documentation a lot more actively than other people, so I guess that's why different people are in there. And we've got at least some people using sort of formal project management tools there as well. So yeah, good chunk of different things there. Do you want to move on, Kristen? Automation tools, fantastic. Yeah, we all use these. I think the goal here really is to save time, and the Slack, the chat tool, yes, it is faster than email. We can just hammer something out. We can talk to somebody very quickly. So it is a very useful tool in that environment. I think avoiding endless meetings is key. And again, I'm going to fall back to Kristen and I's view of this.
it's very tempting to have a meeting to talk about having a meeting in which you talk about the meeting that you're going to have next. And particularly with customers with commercial tools, the old defaults here are the best. So if we are having meetings, we will insist on agendas. We will insist on very short meetings. We actually do have stand-up meetings where we don't let people sit down because people get too comfortable and you just sit in the meeting. So these tools really can help. Yeah, some of these ones, because they help us stay focused on our projects. They help us stay focused on our goals rather than just the interactions of meetings and different things. I think with some of these automation tools, really, the fact that we're writing things down means we can go back, we can refer to them over time. And I know, Kristen, you're a huge fan of this. We actually write down a lot of things and document things before we walk away from them. So as a commercial company, we can say, oh, that customer's come back to us. Now, we had this thing 6 months ago where they were going to look at that, and we can go back and review notes and we can go and see what's there. A meeting is very difficult for people to remember things that happened last week, last month, the last quarter. So yeah, the automation tools really are really useful in that environment. Somebody's asked a question about CRM, so I'm glad. Do you want to move on? Just one thing, Kristen, drawbacks. It's very difficult with a communication tool to foster the sort of community feeling that we can get from an event like this, from seeing people's faces, from sitting in a room, sitting around a table, from going to an event like SC or ISC or something like that. So the cold and impersonal feeling is difficult to work around. Can lead to delays as well, and I think that's why a lot of people have sort of steered more towards the interactive tools like Slack rather than something like an email tool, which obviously has an inbuilt delay there as well. Disagreements, misunderstandings, we still get issues reading back what somebody else has written because you can't help but apply your own passive voice to that. So when you look at somebody speaking, you can read their body language, you can see what the look they've got on their face. That's taken away a little bit in the text interface. So I think all of us use little smiley faces, we use different things, we use frustrations, we use noises that we've typed in our noise and that sort of thing, really trying to help explain what it is we're here. But you have to be sensitive, you have to be perceptive to think about what somebody else maybe outside my usual cultural experience is going to think to these things that are written down. How can we help people understand what we think and we feel here? So certainly asking people to turn their cameras on in a meeting if they're comfortable is a useful way just to get that feedback, and particularly with a new team if you're not used to meeting up. And certainly for a customer meeting now, we are, when we first meet customers, trying to do those things in person so we can actually see people, we can get a feel for how they interact, how we talk about different things as well. And we do say, yeah, these things can be used as an excuse. We can accidentally, deliberately lose communication. So it is important that, again, we're sensitive to people's time and their ability to actually communicate and do different things. I think one of the rules that Kristen and I come up with, it's very difficult sometimes for people to add to a blank page on a sheet. So we always try and be the people who are putting things up there, so there is something to criticize. Yeah, getting started a project, getting started is very difficult. Yeah, we need something there initially, just to say, right, is this what we mean? Is this how we get started? And you've got to be a little hard. You've got to be a little bit thick-skinned initially, because you're almost inviting criticism at the beginning and you're saying, right, I'm starting with a project. This is what I think. So yeah, you do have to be strong right there, and that is how allies can help. That is how collaborators can help, just to break the ice initially and create something that you can start to build on. Do you want to move on, Kristen? Excellent communication. Really excellent quote here from John Powell. John Powell is a cinema music score producer. So if you've watched some of the DreamWorks production, things like How to Train Your Dragon, John Powell wrote the music score for this. And it is fascinating how an artist like this is using his skills. He's using the ability of writing music, scoring music, to tell the story of the film as well, such that a real big part of these animated films. There's no people. Yeah, this is just a computer talking to you with this animation. But the music helps really evoke the feelings, the thoughts of what's going on there. And he said communication really works for those who work at it. It's not something that is just going to appear. This isn't a skill that you tick a box and move on from. This is something you need to work at every day. You're not going to get it right 100% of the time. You need to build on experience, and you need to take feedback from everybody you work with. I think, Kristen, I'm going to hand across to you.
Yay, I get to do the wrap-up slide. So yeah, what we kind of took you on today was a whistle-top tour of how to really engage at an inclusive level. And outside of my incredibly amazing unicorn research software engineer graphic, what I hope you take away today is about 5 things. Is that this is an opportunity, even if it's in like the next 3 minutes, who knows, to really kind of look at the network that you guys have, explore your allies, and be open to mentorships. I saw a lot of people who said they had no mentorship. Now's the time, or maybe it's time for you to be a mentor. And trust me when I say it, people do ask me this, is when do I know when I'm supposed to be a mentor? I became a mentor because I decided I would try. And I'd been in this, I'd done this, I've been in the enterprise technology world for long enough, I'll give it a go. And I was matched up with some incredible mentees. So that's a question that I know people have asked me in the past. Also thinking about outsiders being involved to help process. And from that, the little story I'll bring with that one is back last year with the supercomputing series. They decided to look at humanities, which was actually a project they gave me in communications to find stories around. And as I went through talking to musicians, talking to social scientists, talking to physicists who were used to working on big machines, stripping stuff down to model the universe from 13th century Latin translations of all things in the world, I found that there's a lot of things that are related out there, and to never fear asking for outside opinions. So that's one of the things that really stuck with me from the project I did last year. And then there's some really solid in terms of engagement and communication, honestly, setting goals, taking ownership. It is, we keep saying the word project management, you guys, a lot. For those who haven't really been in the RSE field for a really long time, you're like, what, do I now have to get project management certification? No, you don't have to do that. What we're trying to say is when you establish the guidelines and when you talk about success and when you make that conscious effort, you can actually find yourself going, here's the goals. And am I thinking about everybody involved? Am I thinking beyond what I want, which is that contributing to the wider growth of the audience? Am I thinking beyond just this moment now? Can I find a way to take my knowledge and make it better next time? And then the final bit, and this is just because we're all at our core a bunch of technical geeks, it's the tools that we have in our back pocket, and that weird balance that we have to have between wanting to make sure there's a good process in place and that we're streamlining things and we're giving people what they need, but that there is a moment for the tools, and there's also a moment when you're like, I need to have that interaction, I need to have those in-person meetings, I need to have that stuff there. So it's that horrible fine balance, and there's no one right answer. Sorry, guys. And actually, I think with that, we've come to the end of our presentation. So I can stop sharing. And I don't know, because I was on the record, I didn't want to bring up the chat window and like blow people away with like chat stuff. So is there any questions in there, Will, that people had that they'd like to ask or talk to?
I did see the one about CRM.
I was a CRM administrator.
Yeah. You'll have to run it. Customer relationship management system.
Yeah, CRMs.
Cool.
And they're
Excellent.
usually used in sales organizations. So to see a CRM thing brought up for the RSE community is interesting.
It is, yeah, and it will certainly help you track people. If we can help at all, Alcis, I mean, I remember when Kristen started with Alcis 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, about 6 years ago. I tried to find a CRM. It didn't work.
Yeah,
on for HPC. It's like, you're like, I can't build a matrices for this. It just doesn't happen. So we ended up, we used Trello. Sure. And I have an archive board for an archive board because projects go away and come back.
Yeah. I mean, your traditional CRMs, the problem is you spend all your time trying to drive the tool and bend it around the will of your Cs. I mean, your customers just don't fit. They've never fitted. And there isn't a CRM that fits the model of some of our customers who will talk to us intensively for a week, and then we can't get hold of them for 6 months. And then they'll spend $3 million on a supercomputer a month after that. It's just, that doesn't fit into CRM. It just doesn't happen like that. So absolutely fine if you think you can use it and it's working well for you, but just be aware that RSE's software, it's a little bit specialized. Not everything fits together.
But if it does work, Rebecca, please let us know, because I know that there's a lot of people out there who have tried in the past, especially if anybody, you guys can attend either in person or virtually the RSE conference that's happening in September. I know that they do talk about developing tool sets to try to manage process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm working with Marisa Brazil. You might be familiar with her. She
I know Marisa.
Yeah,
it's the original women in HPC.
Exactly. Yeah, she runs the RMAC WHPC chapter that we host here at ASU, and we have been trying to get CRM to work for a very long time now, and there seems to be some headway. So yeah, definitely. Maybe we can get in contact.
Absolutely. No, I'd love to, and I know the RSE community in the UK. They have talked about that too. I find that we're fine sitting in GitHub using Kanban to manage a lot of the stuff that I help out with there. Any other questions?
We had another question in the chat from earlier in the presentation that I will bring up. It was specifically in reference to the boundaries slide. Was there an assumption that this is a manager type person who is taking on the suggested actions within the boundary slide?
No, I think the thing is that with like the role, when we were trying to write this, we wrote this presentation. We sat around talking a lot about the different elements, and I mean, we realized we could talk for days about each one of the pieces in detail. And we're like, well, let's do something kind of more fun and interactive instead, and just like let people capture a moment in time. And when we got to boundaries is something that I think you should be establishing from day one in your career. I don't care where you are. You could be at the bottom as an intern getting tea for people. There's only so many tea, cups you can carry. There's stuff that you need to really like sit down and really think about. And even like I see this with the RSE, I don't plan projects or think about assigning people. You're assigning yourself. You're actually planning yourself. You're planning your day. You're planning everything around you. And I think understanding where your limits are is really important to succeeding in your career and in whatever work you do. Will, do you have any thoughts?
I would totally agree with what you're saying. I think as well, it's funny the number of people who suffer from imposter syndrome. And even now I will get communications from other people, big commercial vendors, sort of 3-4 letter computer company people and cloud people and all like that. And they're genuinely worried they don't understand HPC or they don't understand this thing. And some of them are male, some of them are female. Yeah, there's no rhyme or reason to it. But if they're struggling to understand, if you're struggling to understand, it's very likely that everybody's struggling to understand. And I certainly try to make sure I always say, I don't know what that is, or hang on, I don't understand that bit, or this needs to happen. And it takes a lot to, particularly in a technical career, to get to the point where you're happy to say, oh no, hang on, I need a bit of help to understand that. So yeah, I think that's important. I think building up a team, setting your boundaries, working out where that stuff is. You have to be happy with what you are ready to say and what you're not ready to say.
Definitely. I see Shay's asked a really good question. I really like this question because this is a tough one. Using tools, getting people to buy into things such as Trello. one of the things that when Will talked about, I joined, here I come from an enterprise IT group, and I'd been using Salesforce and CRM tools and dashboards, and I tried to hammer a CRM into HPC, and anybody who works in HPC knows that doesn't work. And they told me, and so I was down to sticky notes. And then one day, one of the people came in and said to me, you're just making a Trello board, but you're wasting paper. So I ended up going to Trello because that seemed to be what people naturally gravitated to. Because not only are when you introduce a tool, you have to sell the tool, you have to get people to fill stuff out. There's like this balance between just how much information do you want to have in that tool, how much metrics. And I know that's a big one with diversity and equity. I had a long conversation about what metrics need to be gathered and stuff like that. So I think it's trying to find the thing that people might gravitate to most. There might be something pre-existing, and then to try to strip out as much detail as possible, try to make it as easy, as simple as possible to do stuff. The reason why we ended up gravitating towards Trello is because it's free form, and we realized very quickly that free form was the way it was going to work for us, but it could be different for any other project.
For those who may not be monitoring the chat, the question was how or what are some good ways to approach the issue of broad engagement from your team? Just so everybody knows.
Try to keep it simple.
I have a question. Yeah, I have a question if anybody, if nobody else has one right now. You talked heavily about mentorship, and mentorship is something that's very near and dear to my heart too. For those people though who who answered in the survey poll that they didn't have a mentor, what sort of advice would you give those people about how to find one or how to potentially engage in mentoring activities?
I feel like, okay, so I'll talk first and then Will can add to it, because I do know formal mentorship programs do exist. I would have to say that's probably the easiest, less terrifying way to seek mentorship, because I know that there have been people in the past who said, well, I've gone and asked for this person or that person to be a mentor and they've turned me down, and then it's like, oh no. And it's never anything personal, but formal mentorship schemes do exist. I know that one exists for women in HPC. I know that the RSCs in the UK, with any conference or event that they do, offer mentorships, and they do the same thing. It's a bit like, give us what you want and we'll try to put you with someone else. And that's a way to get your foot wedged in the door, as it were. You may find yourself in a position where you are able to talk to people who are maybe more experienced than you, or maybe you're able to teach or engage with people who are less experienced than you. And there may be an opportunity, if you know about it, just kind of stick this in your back pocket, in the back of your mind, that maybe if you go prepared with a question that could be very useful for you personally in a career, and if you could spread the news, that would be great too. That's my bit. And then I see that Rebecca has said that NCWIT is another that offers mentorship. So that is another mentorship way over stateside. So that's good. Will, do you have anything?
Well, I've never been heavily involved in the formal mentorship side, but I think informal mentorship, probably the easiest way is just to ask. And it seems stupid, it seems ridiculous, and I don't know if it's a bravado thing and people think, oh, I'm so clever, I don't need to ask this, or what that is. But yeah, don't be afraid to ask people. At the very least, people are probably going to be flattered if you want to. It's like, you think you can help me? It's a difficult thing. Some people struggle asking for help, particularly in technical jobs. But I have had other commercial vendors coming asking for advice on HPC, and they're sort of they're standards. People who make laptops, people who make the servers, they're that sort of businesses that they're coming from. But actually, that's worked out really well for them. It's not a formal program. It is informal, with a shared goal of doing more, achieving more, which obviously benefits everybody. So yeah, don't be afraid of informal mentorship, either asking somebody if they would like some help, or if you want to ask for help, go ahead.
Thank you. There was another question in the chat that I'll read out. This is from Jamie Finney. This may not be relevant, but when you are moving to new tools or processes, how do you approach accountability? As in, what do you do when someone doesn't want to use a new tool or process?
This
Yep.
is familiar. This feels familiar, Will. Yeah, so will you answer this one?
I'll start. So we've got some experience of that. So one of the things we do as a company is we manage people's HPC clusters for them, right? And they basically they allow us to take care of the clusters. Then they focus on the research and the other bits and pieces. So we have a lot of commercial companies. We have some research organizations as well. Now, we have a tool which we call Flight Center, which is like a web interface that we give them to ask questions. And one of the reasons we do it that way is it's how we bill. So if they ask a lot of questions, they essentially pay more money. So one of the things we deal with all the time is people emailing us direct, emailing us the engineers, or ringing us up and saying, oh, I just want this and I just want that. That's the word to look for. If there's just in there, oh, I just want this, that's a big, long, protracted thing that's about to happen. So there is no obviously hard and fast way to hammer that home, and you've got to balance your requirements, and for me it's my requirements as a commercial business. We have to make some money, with what the customer wants, with what the other person wants. They want to achieve something quickly, or they want to achieve just this little thing, or they just want some help somewhere. So it is a very personal thing to find that balance. You may find that not adhering to the tool is fine for a period, and then you sort of cajole gently people into a bit more accountability going forward. Equally, you might decide, and some people do, to be very hard initially and then relax over time as you build up trust with that other person. But it is absolutely about that, building up your relationship with people to help them see the benefits of the tool. And also, if it's not working for them, absolutely, then you yourself, I guess, have to be flexible. You have to look at what you can change. And if there is another tool that works for you, maybe a different one works for somebody else.
I'm good with that. I would say that one of the tips I learned too is to answer people in the tool that you want to use, so that they always see the pass through of that process being put in play.
Thank you so much. We are at the top of the hour, so we are out of time. I want to thank Kristen and Will so much for joining us and for giving a really fun and interactive, I thought that was great, by the way, presentation where we got to look at unicorns and press hearts and stars and answer questions. It was lovely. I mentioned at the beginning, this was recorded, so if you know somebody who is not able to attend, who wants to at least see the presentation later, it will go up on our YouTube page at some point after we've had time to edit it. It will be there eventually. But again, we want to thank Kristen and Will for taking the time out of their busy days to come and do this presentation for us. And thank you to everybody who was able to attend. A big round of applause for Kristen and Will.
Thank you guys so much. I'm glad you had fun. Hopefully you had fun. Take care, guys. Have a good rest of your day.
Everyone.
Thanks. Good to talk to you guys.
Bye.
Take care.